Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm JJ Flizanes, your host. Thank you for downloading today's episode. I hope you're doing well out there, despite the circumstances in the world. There are some positive things that are happening that many people aren't aware of, like the earth healing itself on several levels between the pollution in the air and the pollution in the water. I've heard that dolphins have reemerged in Venice because the waterways are normally very busy, and now they're not, and they're extra clean. So if you're looking for some more positive information, safe space, health tips to boost your immunity, a way for you to sort of escape, if you will, a little bit and get out of the negative momentum, I would invite you to come to my 30-day manifestation challenge. We are starting on April 1st. It is free, and you can go to jjflizanes.com/30day. I also want to give you a little tip on one of the benefits of becoming an Inner Circle member, and that is a $10 a month commitment that you can cancel at any time. I did a bonus group session last week, and it was about 2 hours long, and we did a lot of the things that we talk about actually on the show. We did it live with each other because I wanted to give them tools to use in any circumstance. And by the way, there are a lot of tools in today's show that everyone is going to get great benefit from. I can't wait for you to hear today's show on Access Consciousness because the tools are easy, simple, and fast, and you will probably feel lighter and better immediately when you do them. So please stick around for the entire show. I promise you won't be disappointed and you will feel better at the end of it. But back to the Inner Circle membership, I had done some EFT as best I could in a group situation, which is tapping. We cleared our energy fields. We worked on pivoting and working on slowing down that negative momentum. And of course, to start all of that, we just shared and communed together. And I think it was very powerful for a lot of people. The videos that I do in the Inner Circle group coaching calls live in the Facebook group, which is sort of the main aspect besides the Inner Circle member podcast. It's the main aspect of the group. So if anyone's looking for extra tools online, and you can do a 7-day free trial and come on over to the Facebook group and see what it's about. They get a lot of attention and we have a lot of engagement and a lot of connection, and even just getting together at a time like this where people feel disconnected, it gave people a lot of joy and happiness in order to see each other and trust and know that we were all in this together on a frequency of hope and positivity and hopefully pivoting. The links to both of those will be in the show notes, which is somewhere on your device. If you click more info or possibly notes or info on the podcast, you'll get a drop down, which will open up the bio for Dr. Dain Heer for today, for myself, and any of the links that we talk about. So make sure to check the show notes for the links if it's something that you are interested in but don't want to write down or remember. Again, what we've talked about so far is the free 30-day manifestation challenge starting on April 1st, and also the Inner Circle membership, and that you get a 7-day free trial, and it's a $9.99 a month commitment to more contact, more tools, a bigger community of like-minded individuals who are really empowered to want to help themselves and each other shift the planet and shift ourselves through vibrating at a higher level. Dain Heer is an influencer of change and inspiration with a community over 1 million people. Millions of people engage with him across social media, and his videos regularly go viral on social media. He's a popular speaker, author, and inviter to greatness and consciousness. Originally raised in the ghettos of Los Angeles and trained as a chiropractor, Dr. Heer is also the co-founder of a diverse range of businesses around the world. A conscious and creative thought leader with a profound understanding of the power of personal creation, Dr. Heer draws upon his background and unique perspective to facilitate positive change in the world and empower people from every culture, country, age, and social strata to create the money, relationships, and life they truly desire. Welcome back to the show, Dr. Dain.
Oh, JJ, it's great to be with you. Thanks for having me again.
Well, we opened a can of worms we didn't really get to.
I know.
So I want to talk about Access Consciousness because it's right up my alley. And, you know, I teach a lot of law of attraction on this show and have all kinds of spiritual teachers and practices and gurus of all kinds that come on and talk about their things. And this is a thing. And we didn't really talk about it because we were focused on Return of the Gentleman, which was lovely and wonderful and needed. But now it's time to spend the entire time talking about Access Consciousness.
Cool. Is this the time where I let people know I'm not a spiritual teacher and I'm not a guru?
Sure.
Okay, good. I'm not a spiritual teacher and I'm not a guru. Feel so much better.
Aren't you a teacher?
I am a facilitator. And you could look at that as a teacher, but from my point of view, it's really not just a matter of semantics from my point of view, because a teacher is, we've all had teachers as we were growing up, and they supposedly knew stuff and we supposedly didn't, and their job was to teach us all the stuff that they knew that we didn't know, and then we were supposed to get tested. So for me, it's more of a facilitator of you knowing what you actually already know and have always known that nobody else is talking to you about.
Okay, I accept that and I like it. I would also consider myself a facilitator then. I don't mind the word teacher, but I also hear you in that in reviewing my life, I can think about teachers who taught some specific subject that then, like you said, get tested on. And I often review how unimportant many of the things that I was taught in school are in my life to date. So it's very funny that, yes, teachers are like doctors, I guess. People think that doctors hold sort of the power, and they really don't. They have information that may or may not be useful to you. They have opinions that may or may not be correct for you. But a lot of people do revere them as the end all and be all. And I guess that's sort of the way you're looking at the word teacher.
Yes, and I'm glad you brought it up, because that really is for me sort of a vital distinction, in that what most of us have been taught to do is to put the answers outside of us. And in so doing, we put our awareness outside of us. Whereas if we would recognize that there's so much that we know, but nobody's ever acknowledged us for that. And nobody's ever acknowledged that we can ask questions, we can change things in our lives. We just need the tools. And that's where I'm coming from in this, is we're a lot greater than we think we are. And not from that airy fairy way, where people go, you're awesome, but you still need to listen to me to get all your stuff. It's like, I'm saying we're awesome. You're way more awesome than you ever thought you were. And there's a different choice available.
Agreed. I believe in leading people to trust their own intuition. I have actually started my own mastermind this year, actually two of them. One of them is with Doug, but the core of mine, because it deals with the mind, body, soul, isn't about making money. It's about what's right for you. It's about how to have the highest expression of who you are and have that be in alignment with your life purpose, not about using a mind, body, soul approach to living. And then, over here, we're going to deal with money and how to sell something. And then it's disconnected from the greater good of what you're supposed to be doing here, what lights you up, what your zone of genius is, and why you're here to serve in the first place. And I actually just had this conversation with one of my members, because she did something that we had discussed. She did the opposite of what we discussed. And then when she did it, I thought, well, that's frustrating for me. But then we came to it and she agreed with me. And I said to her, she goes, why didn't you say something to me? I said, because it's not for me to tell you. If you felt strongly about something, I want to guide you to do the best for you, not because it's my idea, but because it's right for you. So I said, we are having this discussion now. So I agree. And I want to go back to, I know we talked about the story a little bit about how you even before you met Gary and where your life was and what you had to experience to be ready for something like this. Can we go back to that story?
Oh boy, I tell you.
It's just a small version of it. You just give the highlights.
Short version. The problem is I don't know how to talk in short sound bites. I'm not very good at that. I talk for 5 days in a row without repeating myself. So let me give it to you this way. It's like I was a chiropractor starting my second practice. I was in Santa Barbara, everybody saw it as paradise, and I was dying inside. And I had tried every darn technique and gone to so many weekend workshops trying to change my life. And I was still waking up unhappy, and had for the better part of 3 years. And I finally said, universe, you got 6 months. Either my life really changes or I'm out of here. And all I really wanted was to truly be happy. And I saw an ad for something called Access Consciousness, and was very resistant to it at first, because it said, all of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory. Call Shannon. It had this girl's phone number on there. And I ended up calling her and asking her for a session. And it was like talking to a happy marshmallow on the other end. And I had nobody in my life that was not in judgment of me or themselves at the time. So this was a breath of fresh air. So anyway, I had a session of something called Access Consciousness bars. And it's this really light touch technique where somebody touches points in your head, all these different points like money, control, creativity, body, healing, power. And as she put her hands on my head, I felt this energy rush through my body. And I was like, whoa, this is different. Okay. And a few minutes into the session, I started giggling like a little kid. And she would move her hands to a different place, and I would giggle more and giggle more. And I was like, yeah. And I went into that session depressed and suicidal. And an hour and 15 minutes later, was grateful to be alive. And I'm like, if it can feel this way to be alive, I'm in. And we traded sessions once a week because I couldn't afford to pay for them. And she was willing to do them for the chiropractic that I was doing. And every single week, she would give me a different tool to use that week to change things because, she's like, hey, a lot of times you'll go through this, you'll get the sense of what's possible, and then it feels like things cloud that. And she gave me a tool. And every time I would use the tool, I would go back to that sense of space. After a week of that, I'm like, what is this? How can I do it? And that was 20 years ago. And, I met the founder and have been part of co-creating it for the last 20 years.
So and I was on your website before we got on today's interview more in depth to look at what access consciousness is. And if you're not calling it a body of work, of information or teaching, would you consider it tools to help people elevate and eliminate depression, anxiety, to remember who they really are? I mean, I didn't read the whole thing and I didn't memorize it. So what is access consciousness?
Yeah, well, I would say it's definitely a body of work and a body of tools. But it is basically tools, techniques, and information. So you can change anything in your life you desire to change on the one hand. And then on the other hand, it's also got this awareness that you have the capacity to function far greater than most people have ever been taught they can. And so the tools are about getting you out of the trauma and drama and the insanity and the crap that doesn't work that most people live with, thinking they have to live with it, and about getting to a place where life is more ease to create, more joy, like having more fun, and where you get to have this exuberant expression of being alive. And I said what I said at the beginning because it's not about following somebody else. Gary is the founder. I came along 10 years after he started it, so I consider myself a co-creator. But we've got, 15,000 facilitators around the world at this point doing some level of the work. It's in 176 countries. And so for us, when somebody comes to Access, they are a contribution. They'll ask a question in a moment where there's another doorway that can open, and we find another tool, another way of looking at something that everybody else in the world is stuck by, and we find a way of changing it and helping them out of it. But it's really about the individual. And the primary thing that we start people hopefully having the awareness of, the first tool we share with them is, what's true for you makes you lighter. A lie makes you heavier. Even if we say it, you have to follow your knowing. And if you do, you'll start to know what's true for you, know what works for you, and be able to navigate your life successfully without the trauma and drama and the ups and downs that most people live with on a constant basis, no matter what they're doing or what area of life they're trying to work on.
So you found it through an ad, right?
Yep.
Okay. And I'm guessing that other people also find it through, obviously, like podcasts like mine, as well as one of my friends, longtime friends, after I'd interviewed you, she's like, oh, I love Dane. I don't think you know her personally, but she, I believe, has attended a workshop and she knew all about you. And I did not prior to our interview. So I did ask her where she learned about you and Access Consciousness from. She lives currently in Miami. And how would you say people find you? And I know I'm just on the business side, on the awareness side, I want to kind of empower people to be paying attention to. And I'm just curious also, for as long as you guys have been around, why I haven't heard of you yet, why it's taken this long. Now I know there's also, to me, I believe in divine timing. So it comes in when I'm ready for it. But why is, tell me about that business model and the word of like the marketing part.
Well, that's an interesting thing because I would chalk it up to divine timing. It's like it is so different. The conversations that we have in class are so different. But here's one of the things I've noticed, like in working with people in private sessions or in classes, because what we've done is so the way Access has grown, the way this body of work has grown that has well over 8,000 tools to change different things. And, you hear that and go, what? But the way it's all been created was 30 years ago when Gary started, somebody would come to him and they would say, hey, I've got this problem. Can you do anything? He's like, well, never worked with somebody who had that before. Let me find out. And we would be present with them and we would continue to ask questions. And here's 4 questions that everybody can ask. Because I talked to you about before, I'm a firm believer in having tools to change things. So this is how we basically the way of going about things, which is, what is this? What do I do with it? Can I change it? And how do I change it? And so we would work with people on their relationship stuff. We worked with people on abuse. We worked with people who have OCD, ADD, ADHD, autism, like basically anything under the sun at this point. And what we would do by staying as the question and seeing what was lighter, remember the truth makes you lighter. Whatever's true for you makes you lighter. A lie makes you heavier. We would follow wherever we were led, and we would come up with these very interesting ways of changing things. And yet it's not your typical conversation. If you go to a typical relationship or money class, for example, there are lots of things that are, probably 80% of it is similar to what you've heard from other people. There may be another 15 to 20% that people have added in stuff that they found. If you come to a money conversation in Access Consciousness, about 80% of it is going to be different than what you heard before. 20% of it will be what we found actually works and is lighter that other people have found also. And so my sense is it's such a different conversation that what the people that have been drawn to it for the last 30 years have been the seekers of the world, and the people that know they're the weirdos, and when people tell me, I've been told I'm weird my whole life. And I'm like, yeah, that's because you're awesome. The original meaning of weird was of spirit, fate, or destiny. So when people tell you you're weird, it's like, yay, thank you for the acknowledgement, not, oh my goodness, I should stop being this. But because people live in a world where they want to fit in, they want to have the right things. They want to have the things that everybody else thinks are right. And yet it works for so few of us. So long story short, sorry, I told you I know how to talk too much. Long story short is basically that this thing is so different that people even hearing the conversation to be like, yeah, no, I don't understand it. But when people sit down and listen, they go, oh my God, this explains so many things I've known my entire life that nobody else in the world is talking about. And I don't say that from a level of arrogance. I really don't mean it that way, because I think there are lots of things out there that are great and work brilliantly. This is just a totally different conversation. But in looking at how we have been growing in the last several years, it's like last year we had a 40% growth in people coming to Access classes. And so maybe you're hearing about it because it's time for it to be heard about.
I get that. And I'm in agreement. I believe that things are timed when it's the right time. And so I'm in agreement, and don't worry about long answers. I know you're a Gemini. We've had this conversation already, and I expect it. I encourage it. I'm interviewing you. I don't know about Access Consciousness, which is why you're in the hot seat. So please continue to educate and share. That is why we're having today's show. I didn't want to leave people. I'm the seeker. I am the weirdo for sure. And when we first had our conversation about Return of the Gentleman, and you mentioned Access Consciousness, I thought, okay, well, we have to come back to this, because that I did not give it enough time or exploration to share with people. And that is not being of service, because I've just basically teased you with something that I did not understand nor give the proper amount of time to. So that is why we're having today's show, to give people another option, another tool, another body of work if things that you are doing are currently not working. What would you say would be the cause that most people, or the impulse that people have, or the situation that they're going through? Obviously yours was, you said, suicidal and depressed. Is that everybody that's coming to Access Consciousness? What do you think the majority of people that are attracted to the information, besides knowing that they're weird, is?
I would say knowing there's something else possible. Like this, one of the points of view I had when I was at that place in my life, I'm like, if this is all there is, I don't need to be here anymore. And I got to say, most of the people who come to Access are not in that place, which is wonderful. I just had to get there so I would change a few very fixed points of view that I had about the way the world worked. But I'd say that, knowing that there's more, but also they have a lot of people who come to Access have an area of their life they want to change, and they've seen a friend who has changed that area, and they're like, wait a minute, we were both stuck in the same box before. What the heck did you do that got you out of the box? I don't want to live in this box anymore.
So let's talk about some of these tools, because obviously you said there are 8,000 of them. That alone, I feel a little weighted down by. Like, that's too many to choose from right now. I love the lighter for the truth and the heavier for a lie. I love that. So simple. You used that on the show we did about Return of the Gentleman. And I think it's a great tool for everyone to use. Can't get more simple than that. If you feel lighter, it's the truth. If it's heavier, it's a lie. So can we go over a couple more tools that you guys use?
Sure. Did I say 8,000? I meant 8. Oh my goodness. I can't believe I said that. I'm just kidding.
You did say 8,000. You said 8,000. I'm like, 8,000? I can't even wrap my head around 8,000.
I know exactly, but that's exactly it, because we try to wrap our head around things, and that's where we stop it, because we can't figure it out because it doesn't match our mental construct of the world. And what this is about is going beyond the mental construct. And when I said 8,000, it's probably more like 10 or 12 now. So I apologize. Sorry. I know you're one of these people who has this amazing intelligence. And I think a lot of people out there do. And they think, okay, if I'm this intelligent, I should be able to figure out my life and how to make everything work. And I think it's one of those places where mind gets in our way a lot, because I've been the same way a lot of my life. So I understand that. But so let's go into one of the other tools that might be really helpful.
One? You want one? You just told me of 10,000. You're going to give me one? Can you give me more than one?
I will give you as many as we have time for. Are you kidding?
Okay.
I want these tools to be out in the world. It's like, there's just so much. And really, if I can sound like not too much of an excited child, it's like, I've seen these tools change things for so many people. And it's like, that's what I would like people to have. Whether they come and do an Access class or not, or get a book or do the online stuff or whatever is their choice based on what makes them lighter. I just know that if they get happier, so does our world. And I live in the world too,
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, let's do one more right now. You can only do one at a time, JJ. We couldn't do all 8,000 right now.
Well, it sounded like a big tease. You're like, I'll give you one more. I'm like, no. You can't do that. You just said 8,000.
Wait. Hold on a minute. But you're the one who just said 8,000 seems really overwhelming right now.
It does. And
so what did I do? I'm like, okay, well, if 8,000 is overwhelming, let's do one.
I can handle more than one right now. I can handle more than 20 right now. I don't know if I can handle 10,000 right now, but I pride myself, Dana, on having a very, very well established toolbox. Okay. So you have to know this about me. I have so many tools in my toolbox that I've spent my entire life gathering that have changed my life and changed others' lives. And so now you're giving me, and here I'm thinking, oh, I don't know anyone that has more tools than me. Well, all right, now you have more tools than me. And that's fine. It's not a competition, but it's that idea that I've literally spent my entire lifetime gathering these tools, using these tools, being excited about all these tools, thinking, oh, there's probably like a couple more out there that I don't know. And now all of a sudden you've said there's like 12,000. And I'm like, what?
I know. Believe me, I get it, because I was in the same boat. I'm like, I have so many tools. Are you kidding me? And so let me say this also about all the Access tools is you don't have to give up what you're already doing. Adding it to what you already do makes it easier, gives you a different perspective, and also shows you different ways to use the tools you already have to make it greater, but also to make it easier. And so it's one of those weird things that is not in confrontation with anything else. It's not in fight with anything else. It's really designed to be in contribution to everything else. So one of those tools is the awareness that 98% of your thoughts, your feelings, and your emotions don't belong to you. And you hear that and you're like, wait a minute, 98%. Yeah. So imagine if 98% of the crap that went through your head today wasn't there anymore. If you could actually undo it, dislodge it, and stop buying the lie that it's yours. Because we all know what it's like, and so the reason I can't give you 8,000 or 10,000 or however many thousands of tools there are, we haven't numbered them, by the way, but the reason I can't give you, that many at a time, or even 20, is because I'll say one thing like that, and then your mind goes into trying to figure it out. And you're like, wait a minute. Wait, what do you mean 98? If that were the case, somebody would have told me by now. I'm like, I know. That's what I thought too. I'm like, shouldn't somebody have told me this when I was born? Shouldn't they have given me a little book like, here's how the universe really works? Here's how to be successful in life. But no, that's not the case. So what we have is a lot of people who are going around with other people's sadness, other people's drama, other people's insanity and limitation around creation, around the ease of creation, around the ease of having money, around the ease of creating relationships, and they're not even theirs. So the way to start unlocking this is to use this tool called Who Does This Belong To? Or in certain situations, who the frig does this belong to? Since, I don't want to cuss on the show. And the way that works is
No
this.
problem.
Okay, thank you.
You can cuss, don't worry.
Okay, good. Well, I don't give me that freedom. I might do it a little more than I'm supposed to. I don't follow rules very well. It's one of my quirky, characteristics that is either a power or a limitation depending on the moment. So here's what you do. You want to ask, who does this belong to every thought, feeling, emotion, and every weird twisted energy you get, every judgment, every point of view about this is the way it has to be. You want to ask, who does this belong to? And if it lightens up at all, it's not yours. Now, if you'll do this for 3 days, and we actually even have a free app that reminds you to do this, because talk about being present in your life. People talk about difficulty meditating. I'm like, you want an interesting challenge in being present? Be present for all the stuff that goes across your head and ask, who does this belong to? And for the stuff, if you ask, who does this belong to? If it lightens up at all, like let's say you're getting sad, you're feeling like, oh my gosh, I have this project and I can't do it. Or you're getting, downtrodden, you go, okay, wait, who does this belong to? If that lessens at all, it's because it's not yours. You're picking it up from somebody else, or you bought it from somebody else at some point, that this is the way the situation goes, or this is the way it has to be. And all you do is go, okay, everywhere I bought it is mine, undo that. And we have this thing called a clearing statement that I guess I could introduce here if we have enough time. That takes a little while too. But all you have to do is go, everywhere I bought it is mine. I undo that. I destroy and uncreate all of that. Destroy the structure, uncreate the energy I'm using to hold it in place, and then return to sender with consciousness attached. And what happens as you do that for the first day, you feel you'll do it for 20 minutes, you'll forget for 30, you'll do it for an hour, forget for an hour, you get the idea. And then you do that again on the second day. And on the third day, this miraculous thing happens. You have no friggin' thoughts in your head. And it's like people ask me, do you meditate? I'm like, my life is a meditation. They're like, yeah, but how do you get rid of your monkey mind? I'm like, I don't have one. I got rid of it a long time ago by using this tool.
I actually did get lighter when you asked that question, and I thought about, I didn't think about anything. You were talking
Right.
about this idea of like the numbers, and that honestly, I'm not that OCD at all. It's just a funny thing because I am always like, oh, I have so many tools, right? So then
Right.
someone says, oh, well, I have 7,000 you don't have. All of a sudden, it was just a funny little like, what?
Excuse me.
Right. And you know what probably happened is the idea of, not that I have a pressure, because I'm feeling really good about the tools I have, and I'm excited to learn yours too and to add them to them. I feel very good about it. I feel very complete, very centered, very calm about all of my tools. Like so much so that other things come into my awareness and I go, no, I don't need that. This other thing I have answers that. No, yeah, that's nice. That doesn't resonate with me. And so now, before, when I was like a sponge taking everything, I now have discernment about things that that's unnecessary, or it's not yet, and I don't need it right now. So when you were saying that, I didn't have pressure about the number of tools, but and I don't even know what the thought was or what the feeling was, but when you asked, who does this belong to? And I've had a session with you, and I've had a session with one of your practitioners. And so I'm slightly aware of this process. And when we say, who does this belong to? All of a sudden my eyes got brighter. My forehead lifted up a little bit. And I thought, oh yeah, I don't know what I'm holding on to, but yeah, I, in the moment, just felt it. And I'm sure anyone who's listening to this possibly felt it too. So,
well, and so may I say two things? Number one is that's exactly how it works. And that willingness, it changes everything because you go, oh, well, yeah, it changed something. Like, I don't have to hold on to, I've got all these tools. I've spent this lifetime doing this, and it's like my tool needs to be right. And I have the same point of view. So, and it works based on that energy of it where you weren't even thinking of anything, but you noticed a shift. It's like, yeah, my eyes got brighter, I got more present, whatever that is for us. And that's also the thing of what's true for you makes you lighter. So here you are, something's going on, something you picked up from somebody today or whatever, and I say, who does this belong to? And it just changes, but that's the way all of Access works. You do this, it just changes. It's not about the story anymore and having to find out exactly where it occurred, when or why, although that's required sometimes. But for a majority of the changes, it's about accessing something different, accessing what's actually true for you, that changes all the lies that you've bought, that you thought were you, that you've been living with, that are, of course, a lie makes you heavier. That's what creates a heaviness. You introduce a different tool that just shines a light on the energetic reality of it, or the truth of it, or that brings the lightness. And then it's a totally different way of going about personal development, if you will, or getting to truly empowering ourselves.
Well, what I like about it is, and again, I've crossed the bridge of left and right brain on some of my tools as well, and sort of trying to be that balanced brain, spirit, consciousness, law of attraction, whatever, all the things. And what I love about something simple as, who does this belong to? And if you feel better, I don't care what the story is. I don't need to know what the story is.
Exactly.
Well, that goes back to a law of attraction saying, which is the only thing you want, anything you want, is because you think you'll feel better when you have it. So anything that we want and all the things that get us down is because we think we'll feel better when we if you just feel better, that's the goal. So just feel better, and who cares? Like, you don't need to know the story or where it came from, because if you achieve feeling better, stay there. That's it. That's all we want. Everyone's just to feel better, period. And if it's a simple 5-second question you ask yourself and you feel better, just accept it. You don't need to overanalyzing it. Means your capacity to hold on to good feelings needs to be worked on next, because obviously feeling good somehow is triggering some upper limit. But if you could accept and receive and feel good, that's the point. And anything easy to do that is awesome.
I'm with you.
All right. Can we have another tool? Can we have another? That was 2.
Yeah. On that note, based on what you just said, and this may sound really simple to a lot of people, because that's exactly what I thought, because I had done all these years of spiritual study. But I'm going to give it anyway. It's this: all of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory. All of life, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Although you don't have to say that part. You just go, all of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory. And you want to say it 10 times in the morning, 10 times in the evening, and whenever you're getting stressed out and don't know what the heck else to do. And the reason this works is because, have you ever done affirmations, JJ?
Of course.
You're like, yeah, of course. Okay, so here's one other of the tools, or the awarenesses, is that your point of view creates your reality. Reality does not create your point of view. So your real underlying point of view about what reality is what's going to show up for you. And what we do is people have learned or been taught to use affirmations to try to overcome their underlying points of view. But what I've noticed with affirmations is you'll do affirmations. Like, let's say you go, I'm healthy, wealthy, and wise. And what's funny is it's always the people that are sick, poor, and stupid that use that. Sorry, that sounded mean. I didn't mean it that way.
No, but it was hilarious. I'm keeping it. and I don't think anyone listening to my show would identify with any of those things, especially the stupid part. So yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. Because that's the thing, is that's the one thing you can't really overcome. And I love what John Cleese said. He said, most stupid people are too stupid to know how stupid they are. And I was like, hey, good point. Okay. So what happens is people try to use an affirmation to overcome what their underlying point of view is. So if you say I'm healthy, wealthy, and wise, and your real point of view is, I'm sick, I'm stupid, and I'm poor, what happens is the affirmation seems to work for a while because you're acknowledging what is actually true for you as a being. But then your underlying point of view, that is the limited point of view that you've made more real, shows up. So things start expanding for a while, and then it feels like all the crap that you've tried to throw out of your world so you could have healthy, wealthy, and wise rains down on your head like space debris. So For me, I never suggest people do affirmations, and people go, "Isn't this an affirmation?" I'm like, no, it's more like a mantra. And what you're saying is all of life, the good, the bad, and the ugly, occurs with ease. So even when something that seems terrible happens, it occurs with ease. Even when you miss your flight, you end up having an easy time handling the situation and getting to where you need to go. Okay, so all of life, the good, the bad, and the ugly, occurs with ease, with joy, and with glory. And the real meaning of glory is exuberant expression and abundance. It's not a religious thing. It's so all of life, the good, the bad, and the ugly, occurs with ease, joy, and glory. So if you use all of life comes to me with ease, joy, and glory, 10 times in the morning, 10 times in the evening, what happens is your life starts to show up from a different space. It actually starts to have more space to it, a space of ease, a space where joy is actually a possibility, and a space where you actually have this exuberant expression and abundance. Because one of the ways people are limiting themselves so dynamically is they have very little exuberant expression, except if it's the right expression that other people will say, this is an okay way of expressing yourself. They don't have the exuberant expression, the glory of being the being that they are. And so once again, I say it's not religious, but this is using that starts to shift things. And my friend Gary had 30 years ago, he had very few tools. You would have loved to meet him then. He had like 6 tools. But
Ha 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 ha.
would have been so easy. He could have told you everything he knew in an afternoon, probably. Not really, but it sounds good. And he had a son who had been doing drugs, and and they were taking him to counseling, whatever, and it never seemed to work. And he asked to borrow the car one night, and he wasn't home at 2 a.m. And so Gary was like, man, he's been to 2 drug programs already. This kid has probably wrapped my car around a pole, and he didn't have anything else that he could think to use. And he went, all of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory, until he fell asleep. He woke up, checked to see if the kid was home. He wasn't. All of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory again, until he fell asleep. Well, he wakes up the next morning because he hears the house door open, and the kid walks in, and he's like, Gary said to him, "What's up?" And he said, "You know what, Dad? I can't do it on my own." Oh, he hadn't actually been in a drug treatment program. He says, "I can't do it on my own." He's like, "I need to go into a treatment program that will actually work." And it's like just that one thing started changing the energy. Because the thing is, what people don't realize is, when you say, hey, if you get happy, it's like you've reached the target. Well, all of those things are actually energetic. It's like if you think of the energy of when you're sad, you think of the energy when you're happy, think of the energy of when you feel like you're on top of the world and you can create anything. And then also when that goes away, all of those are energetic experiences. And we're actually more energetic beings than we've acknowledged. And if you change the energy, you change the situation.
Oh, absolutely agreed. 100% on that. And I do. Is there anything around the 10, like you said, 10 times in the morning and 10 times in the evening?
Nope. That's just enough times to actually make it stick in your world.
Okay. Okay. I agree with you on affirmations. Most people are doing affirmations in law of attraction terms. It's you're activating the so if every subject is 2 subjects, the having of it and the lack of having of it, you don't have it. And so you're saying the affirmation to think you're going to have it, but you actually keep activating the lack of having it. It's like you're embedding the feeling, which is the negative feeling, which is the lack of having it. So half the time affirmations don't even work, because for that very reason, energetically, they're not coming from that place. Like you said, the point of view, our reality is created by our point of view, not the other way around. Reality is not, because there's so many different levels in which people live lives, right? There's so many, in law of attraction terms, it's frequency. There's so many frequencies you can be on. And I can have experiences that someone else never, ever, ever has, and vice versa, because of where we are. And I guess in access terms, you'd call that point of view, right?
Yeah, point of view, and also, frequency works, and also sort of what I would look at it as is sort of the space of reality you're willing to have. And the largeness of reality, because a lot of people are trying to control everything around them enough to get everything right and never get anything wrong. And it's one of those things that we've learned, but especially the seekers of the world, especially people that are listening to this podcast. It's like, why do we do it? Well, we want to feel right and not wrong anymore. But the idea that we're wrong is one of the biggest lies that we buy. So in order to combat that, most people create the smallest life they can that gives them enough of what they desire, but not so much that it's out of control so they can still control it, because if they're not in control of it, then they could lose it, which means the underlying point of view about that is people are continuously looking at the problem that could occur, not the possibility beyond it, which is another way that we function in our world, and if you want to call it frequency or whatever that is, so many people are continuously looking for a frequency that is going to take all the goodness and the greatness and the yummy stuff away and trash it. And once again, our point of view creates our reality, so they end up creating that and they never get why, because they don't have access to an energy of infinite possibilities, which really is what we are as the beings that we are.
That leads into a good question about, so like the spiritual belief, the foundation of access, and obviously not religious, but how would you describe your position amongst spiritual ideas? Or for me, when it comes to law of attraction, to me, law of attraction is physics. Now, the basic bottom line is physics, because we're all energetic beings, and there's frequency that exists. And we all know that by our television sets and our radios. There are different frequencies. So to me, there's not this, it's as science as you can get, and it's as spiritual as you can get at the same time. And there are sciences to explain the spiritual side, and there's the intuition that you don't even need to know the sciences that explain it. That was me. I was the intuitive one, and now I'm learning the sciences, which is cool. How would you position or explain any kind of, because I saw on your website, it said, is it a cult? And I honestly don't think cult's such a bad word. I mean, cult for a lot of people is a bad word, because they think it means you've lost all sense of reality. But as we're talking, well, what reality? I don't want to be in the reality that some of you are in. I want to be in my own reality, yes, which is way better than yours. So why is cult such a bad word? How would you answer that?
Well, so given that there are two questions, I'll answer the first one first to the best of my ability, which is it's based on the idea of consciousness. And we have a definition of consciousness. A lot of people that have talked spirituality for years are now talking consciousness, but they're having the same conversation. And so our definition of consciousness, if you will, is where everything and everyone exists and no one and nothing is judged. And it's funny because, Einstein is far more widely quoted for his conversations on consciousness. And if you want to call it philosophy, which a lot of people do, he's far more quoted on that than he is for his conversations on physics. And which I think is awesome, and even he pointed out every molecule has consciousness and every subatomic particle has consciousness, though he didn't have the ability to study enough of it at the time, if you will. And so it's based on the idea that everything has consciousness, and it's only when we function from less than that consciousness that we are and less than the infinite being we are that we create a problem. When we function from unconsciousness or anti-consciousness, that's the only time we create a problem in our lives. And it's based on the idea that you're an infinite being. And, I'd be in some of the metaphysical stuff that I did before Access, and I would say, hey, how do I handle my money situation? Really practical question, because people were saying, hey, we can do all kinds of stuff. I'm like, cool. How do I handle my money situation? They would say, Dane, you're an infinite being. And I'd be like, yes, wouldn't an infinite being be able to at least pay rent and afford food and be able to do what they wanted to do? I'm not asking for much here. I just want to be happy and have ease, And that was given as though that was the answer to what was my problem. I'm like, I'm like, and so the idea is you're an infinite being. And if you get that, if that makes you lighter, then everything we're doing, functioning as a finite being in any way, is something where we have a different choice available. And all of these tools of access are about inviting these different choices, because every time we take a fixed point of view, we limit our choice. Every time we take a right point of view or a wrong point of view, we limit our interesting point of view or our infinite point of view that limits our choice and limits what we will choose in the future, because we're so interested in being right and not wrong while thinking that we're wrong. And we try to be right to overcome the idea that we're wrong. And the idea that we're wrong is one of the biggest lies we've ever had. So that is sort of the basis of it. And then from there, the whole idea with every question we look at is, would an infinite being truly choose this? Which is another tool, by the way. You can ask yourself, for whatever situation you're in, would an infinite being choose this relationship? Would an infinite being choose this job? Would an infinite being choose to feel this way? Would an infinite being choose to think this way? Would an infinite being choose to look at the future this way? And if not, it's not about making you wrong because you're not choosing to be as infinite as you could. It's about making you aware that there are other choices available. And then you have the tools to get you to the place that's closer to what you as an infinite being could choose. So that's the answer to your first question. The second question about cult, I'm with you. And I think it's great when people think they're in a cult and think I'm in a cult and whatever, and they say, are you in a cult? I'm like, well, if I am, it's a cult of sex and bling, and I'm having more fun than I've ever had before in my life. So if I'm in a cult, it's the best cult I've ever been in any lifetime, and which usually makes them quiet. But people try to say you're in a cult or give whatever the daily judgment, the judgment du jour is, as a way of rejecting what people are doing. And one of the quotes that I love is from Arthur Schopenhauer. And he said, all truth passes through three stages. First, it's ridiculed. Second, it's vehemently opposed. And third, it's accepted as being self-evident. And if you look at every one of the major changes, from the earth is not flat to we're orbiting the sun to, all of these different things, that's what they've gone through. And I think a lot of people out there, that are the seekers have experienced this with people in their lives that are, that have made whatever they've done wrong and said you're in a cult or whatever. And it's like, only and follow your knowing and follow what makes you lighter. And the other thing that's interesting to me is, as far as cults go, have you ever been to church?
Right. Actually, what's interesting is that we were talking about this in our podcast masterclass that Doug and I did. And there was one of my colleagues in the room attending who she's starting a show with her husband, and she's been on the internet and teaching her things for a long time. And she has a very strong following. I have a very good following with this show. And so she's the one that actually said that I had a cult. Well, she has a cult, but I looked at it as it's a compliment, because you have people excited about and dedicated to the work that you're doing because it's working, and they're there and they're continuing to be there because it feels good for them. It does feel lighter. It does do all of these things. Yet when we look at the people who are saying, oh, you're in a cult, and like you just said, have you ever gone to church? We have, well, why are you there? Oh, because I'm afraid. I'm afraid that if I don't go, something bad will happen to me. But it isn't actually the positive experience that people who think they're in a cult are. So it's kind of a funny, right? Isn't that like a funny thing?
It's a very funny thing to me. And, and I love being able to just bring it out there, because so many people, they resist it and they're like, I'm being judged and all this. And it's like all of us seekers have been judged by people at one point or another, once again, for being different or weird or in a cult or whatever. And it's like, hey, I'm doing my thing. I don't judge you for the thing you're doing. You know what I mean? And the interesting part is we can have this conversation with a group of seekers. So let me put it this way. One of the things we found in Access is there appear to be two different species on the planet, okay? Humans and humanoids. The humanoids are the seekers of the world. They're the ones who are like, what else is possible? I know there's got to be something greater than this. What else can I do? What else can I choose? What else can I look at? How many more books can I read? What else can I find that makes reality different? They tend to be people who are in a constant state of judgment of themselves, and they think they're judgmental, but the only person they ever really judge is them. And they tend to think they're wrong all the time, and they're always trying to overcome this sense of wrongness. And yet, if you look at the people that have changed the world, it's always been the humanoids, like Da Vinci, Galileo, Aristotle, Socrates, Einstein. It's like these guys were like, there's something different. I'm going to explore this. And they changed the world by doing so. And then you have the humans. The humans are the ones that are the people that do the same thing in the same way all the time. They're the ones who tend to have high up positions in government, for example. Or in sort of large organizations, and that it's about doing the status quo, and anything different than the status quo is wrong. and you must do it this way. And if you don't do it this way, you're wrong and you're not following the rules. And what happens is a humanoid will be working in an organization, and they'll come to somebody and go, "Oh my God, I've been pondering this for weeks. I've been studying it, and I came up with this plan last night that will allow us to use far fewer resources to actually make more money, to contribute more to people, and it'll be greater for everybody." And their human boss looks at them and goes, "No, that's not the way we do it here." And the human is the person who's willing to, they look at you and they go, "Why do you do all that weird shit? Why are you always talking about energy? Why aren't you happy just sitting on the couch with a beer and watching football?" And so I bring that up, even though it's a little controversial in some people's worlds, because having that one awareness was something that for me, and I had this awareness 18 years ago now, it was something that changed how I try, because what I always used to do is I used to try to give change to people that were not interested, because I could see if they would just choose something different, their life would get so much better, and they would always reject it. And so what happens as a humanoid, as a seeker, what you tend to do is you tend to try to give change to the people that don't desire it, and call them humans or whatever. I don't really care what you call them. I'm just pointing it out this way so people have a different reference point for their awareness that they've always had. But even as a humanoid, you hear this thing about humans and humanoids and go, "Oh my God, I could never think that about somebody because I don't want to judge them as human. They have a chance to evolve just like I do." Yes, they absolutely have the chance to, but will they ever make the choice to? And this is where we have to get really clear with ourselves and our awareness of what people are choosing, what they will choose, what they're most likely to choose, and not make us wrong if they don't choose something different. Realize they're just a different species. It's okay. You're not wrong, and they are not wrong. And instead of putting your energy on somebody who's always going to make you wrong for being different, who's going to judge you for being different, who's going to say you're in a cult, put your energy on the people that actually get you and desire something different, and see how much the reward of what you contribute is increased.
Well, I am sure that I feel strongly about this. You can correct me if I'm wrong, that you, in the work that you're doing, have found your tribe and found your other humanoids / humans, right? So and wanting to spread it, because I'm like you. I was trying to give lots of advice to people who didn't ask for it or want it, and that's actually why I started my show in the first place. Was an outlet for all of the teachings and learnings that I was doing for myself, that the current clients I was working with who just wanted weight loss and fitness and weren't interested in talking about the behaviors or the emotions or the beliefs or any of that. And I thought, oh my gosh, I have so much I want to share. What do I do with it? I need a place to put it. I need an outlet. And blogging was never going to work because my brain and mouth move way too fast for my fingers, and I didn't want to be slowed down. So podcasting became it. And it has what has opened up, again, this conversation to other people who are of like mind and like vibration, like whatever you want to call it, and made it a lot easier to heal some of that rescuer tendency that I think you're calling humanoid, of wanting to help people that aren't really ready. And but what I really love about all the access tools that we've talked about so far, there's 4 of the 10,000.
You're welcome.
Yeah, is that they're easy, they're fast, they're simple, and they're usable every single day. And like you said, in conjunction with anything else that someone is working with. And so from this point, people have been listening and are wondering, well, how do I even get involved? What's the first place to start? Do I look on the website? Do I buy a book? Do I try to find someone doing the bars? So how would someone start? Where's the best place for them?
Yes, any of that. But I would actually say go to my website, because the main site, with this many facilitators, and we have classes on everything. And so people go to the main website, and even though we have a start here button, they're like, there's a lot. If you go to my website, which is drdanehere.com, and check that out, there's a lot of stuff on there that sort of makes the starting process easy. There's a free chapter of my used to be my latest book, Being You Changing the World. There's a lot of stuff there. There's free videos on YouTube. I've got over, almost 400 videos now of different tools that you can use. And that's probably a really good place to start and see what piques your interest. Click on whatever button, inspires you, because that's really the way this works. We tend to think we want and need a roadmap, but even if somebody presents us with a roadmap, we're like, okay, I see the map. Now what else can I do? So go there and just see what works for you. See what seems fun. And you'll either love it or you'll hate it, and all that's good. It's follow your knowing.
You only have 400 videos of tools. You are 9,600 behind, Dane.
True story, my dear. True story.
All right, so we're going to send them to Dr.
Got a lot of work to do. Sorry.
Yeah, you're going to have to really be infinite this lifetime. You're not going to be able to cross over.
I know. Forget that whole sleeping thing I was trying at one point. That's just overrated anyway.
Everyone check out drdanehere.com. I will have links to that, plus Access Consciousness and any other tools in the show notes that Dr. Dane shares with me that he thinks are a good place for you to go. I had an experience with the bars, which was a very interesting experience I had after the first interview. You had caught me right when I had moved. And while the practices that we had done and the tools that we'd used were definitely very helpful, I did find out probably a couple weeks later that my hemoglobin was like at 7.2 and the low is 11.5. So literally they were going to come take me to the hospital. And I knew that. I intuitively knew as we were moving that I could have a heart attack. And I just said, I need to take it easy. And it was because I was so low on iron. Things are completely great and amazing now. So I'm way past that, but it was one of those, like the lowest point physically. And I thought emotionally, but then when I really looked at it, it was a little bit more physical than anything. I'm always the one to assume that it's emotional first versus other people who think, oh, I have this pain. It's because of this physical thing. And I'm always like, yeah, let's go underneath that a little bit. I think there's an emotional component there. So I'm always like, oh, it's emotional. And I'm literally like, no, this feels physical, like my body's saying you're going to die if you do this any longer. But I went to have the bars done because, again, another tool I had never heard of or experienced, and I thought it was fascinating and definitely very helpful. And I would recommend that anyone who is interested in trying that out to check out. And how would they find someone doing bars? I saw that on Access Consciousness they can locate a practitioner.
Yes, and you can actually go to bars, which is BARS, accessconsciousness.com, and you can find bars practitioners all over the world, people that do this. And once again, on that, like, just go through the list. There may be, if you live in a remotely populated area, there's probably somebody around you, and just go for the one that you kind of light up when you think about doing it.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend everyone try it out. I think it's fascinating. And I love how widespread your message and your people are all over the world. Dr. Dane will be back for another show. And actually, Doug and I will both be interviewing him on video because we are going to be heading to his castle in Italy. Do you want to tell us? Let's just set the stage so that they are excited about the next show. So tell us a little about your castle.
As you do, darling. I know. I hear that, and I'm like, oh my God, I have a castle. That's so awesome. There is this. It's called Castello di Calceborgone, and there's this little town in Italy. And one of the things that's been occurring for the last 20, 25 years in Italy is people have been leaving the little towns and going to cities, so they're just basically dying out. And my business partner, Gary, about 3 years ago, he got this weird thought in his head. He's like, I would love to have a castle in Italy. And so somebody we knew called him 2 weeks later and said, there's this castle for sale. It's about 45 minutes outside of Turin and about an hour and 15 minutes outside of Milan. And would you like to go see it? It hasn't been occupied since 1970. And he went, sure. And so he went there, and he was getting downloaded with all these images of what the castle used to be like, but also what it could be like. And so we made an offer, and we ended up buying this. And when I say castle, don't think Windsor Castle, okay? It's got 12 rooms, 14 if you include mine and Gary's rooms, which are in the servants' quarters at the very top of the castle. But it is a place that, see, one of the gifts that Gary has, he's worked in antiques for years, like, I don't know, 60 years or something, forever. And so he has this ability to restore things to the grandeur that they used to have. And so we got this, we bought the castle, we got this contracting company, and they're like, yeah, let's make it modern. Let's blah, 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 because that's what they're doing in all of Italy. In fact, all over Europe and a lot of places in the world. They're taking these amazing places that had this amazing grandeur, and they're making them modern because that's what people apparently want. Well, that's not what we did. What we did is restore it so it's got good electricity, good plumbing, great furnishings, but then we filled it with actual antiques and actual art, and it's got a level of silence, a level of space and peace and elegance, which is something that hasn't been around since the 1920s, 1930s, ever since before World War I, where technology became what everybody wanted. And so this place, talk about a place to decompress and unwind. And we managed to find a great chef, and we just opened, so it's just getting started with having people in it. So there are times you can go to the castle and there's nobody else in it, and you just have this amazing space to be. And the level of silence and peace there is off the charts.
Just what the doctor ordered. We are so excited to go, and we're absolutely going to take pictures, of course, and then we're going to talk about it with you when we get back, you and Doug and I, on video. I figured it was time for us all to get on video. And is there a website you want to tell people about to check it out in case they're traveling or want a destination?
Yeah, absolutely. It's Castello, CASTELLODDI, Casal Borgone, CASALBORGONE.com. I'm going to spell that one more time. CAS. You're like, what?
Well, I'm writing it down. I'm like, wait a minute, what did I miss?
I know exactly. It's as hard to spell as consciousness. So I think, we're in the right realm here. It's CASTELLODICASALBORGONE.com. Whew, I did it.
There'll be a link in the show notes for anyone who is driving, exercising, or multitasking, or you just couldn't get it. That's fine. I get it. I'll put a link in the show notes for you. So if you are considering a trip to Italy, or you live in Europe, a lot of you on my show live in Europe and have wanted me to come to Spain and different parts of Italy, but I'm now going to be going north. So, and I'm excited to do so and bring you lots of amazing pictures and videos. One of my other shows is called Something to Wine About, and Doug and I are going to be doing some wine tasting and hopefully recording with some of the local vintners in the area, and that'll be super fun and cool. And thank you again. I can't wait to have you back on and to go a little deeper into the castle and what people can experience and get, and why they want to make a trip there, and just again the importance of the other side of why we all do what we do, meaning, if we're seeking something, what are we seeking? Are we seeking peace, freedom, happiness, joy? And when it comes to, work and life and relationships, sometimes it feels just like a lot of work, even when you have the best of tools. And there's always a time to recognize when there's balance needed, and the joy and fun and experience of something like a castle in Italy is not a luxury. I know it might feel like one. I believe it's a necessity, because that is what we're here to do on this earth, in my opinion, at this time, is to enjoy every moment of it. And we all work very hard. We all try, sometimes too hard, and take ourselves way too seriously. It's time to have a lot of fun, and we want to take you on that journey, and we want to encourage you to do the same. So, Dr. Dain, Thank you for that. Thank you for today. This conversation is not over. And everyone, please go check out drdainhere.com. Again, all the links of what we talked about are in the show notes. So scroll below, click on the link, and go explore. Check out Access Consciousness and the Castle, and we'll see you back here hopefully in a month or so. So thank you, Dr. Dain.
Thanks, JJ.